Hi and welcome to Topaz Labs video tutorials. Today we will be looking at enhancing some VHS and VHS-C footage. There are many ways to go about this, and the path you take is very dependent on the condition and situation of your footage. So I've already loaded some clips in the clip library here on the bottom left. One of the situations we could see, we have some interlaced footage here, and interlaced just means there's all these fields, so each field represents a different moment in time. So how do we deal with something like this? First, if you go to enhancements, you'll need to select either interlace or interlace progressive. Interlace just refers to these fields that are moving across. Interlace progressive is essentially the same thing, except that the clip was rendered with these baked into it. In this case, I do know this is straight interlaced, so there are multiple options to choose: Dione DV, Dione TV, Dione Dehalo, Iris LQ, Iris MQ, and Proteus. Each one has their advantages. I highly recommend, if you are dealing with footage that is direct firewire interlacing, these first two options are the best for you, especially DV footage. In regards to field order, I tend to use auto detect. Essentially, it's looking at the metadata, and it'll decide based on that which field would be on top versus which one's on the bottom. If you're unhappy with the result, you could always manually choose that. But the auto detect does a really decent job. So let's just go ahead and run that. So I'm just going to put 2 seconds just so you can see what that looks like. That's it. Now we have some deinterlaced footage. And you can see once we're outside of this preview, we have the fields right there. Like I mentioned before, Dione TV works very similar, so we'll skip that. Dione Dehalo, now this treats the footage a little differently. I know there's a section where it's a little more obvious of what's happening. So move forward here. Let's just run this one more time. Okay, great. Dione DV, you're getting exactly what you see. As far as the frames, is exactly how it was filmed. Now, if you do Dione Dehalo, what this is going to do is reduce a lot of these dark edges. So let's go ahead and try that. Bang. So there we go. Now I'm going to bounce between the two of these, and then you can see the differences. Okay. So depending on what you are after, these do produce vastly different results. Dione DV and Dione TV are preset, so if you want to have any sort of modifications, I recommend moving down to Iris LQ, MQ, or Proteus. So we'll use the same clip, and let's go to our enhancements. Interlaced. So LQ just means low quality, so if your footage is very low quality, you're going to want to use that. If it's mid quality, makes sense, go ahead and try that. All it really means is how aggressive you want to go with the tool. So mid quality will be less aggressive, and low quality would be a little bit more aggressive on how the AI model is treating the footage. So let's go ahead and try LQ. Do that. Let me go ahead just a little bit. Okay. So you can see there's a little bit of dehaling going on. It's relatively close to the other one. So what is going on? Right now we're doing auto detect. Now in order to get some of these, if you want to be able to make adjustments yourself, to go manual you need to click on enable parameters. So click on manual here, and it'll always start at 0 for everything. My recommendation is to click on estimate so you'll know what the app is trying to identify needs to be fixed. And then from there, you can make your adjustments. And here you can control how much dehaloing you want. So just walk a little bit further. Okay. Proteus is similar in which you have control on any sort of modifications you want to make. So first we'll go ahead and do everything as auto. So I'm going to disable the enable parameters just to see what kind of result we'll get. Again, I'm using field order of auto detect. So decent result. But if I want a little bit more control, click on enable parameters, manual, estimate. This gives me the leaves I should be using, and I want to improve the detail, fix a lot of compression that's here, and sharpen. We'll go a little bit further. Dehalo looks fine to me, so I'm going to go ahead and render that. Okay, and that's my result. Okay. Now, if you have footage that's been rendered out as progressive, but it still has embedded interlace fields, you want to use this, interlace progressive, and here's the footage that I do know has that same issue. So we'll go clearly see. So we zoom in here. So this will be a good spot. With interlace progressive, you have similar options. Dione robust is going to be treating it very similar to Dione DV and TV. And the Dione robust Dehalo is the same thing as Dione Dehalo over here in interlace. They're just more aggressive and they're looking for these baked in interlace fields. And then all I have to do is just run it. There we go. So if we want to compare, did a decent job. Now, like the interlace, you have Iris LQ, Iris NQ, and Proteus. They work identically as the interlace version. The only difference is in this interlace progressive, it is looking for the baked fields. Other than that, it works the same way. Okay, so what if you have footage that it does not have interlace fields? It was captured off of a VHS tape or a VHS-C tape with a device that's a little bit more modern, or without having any interlacing issues, or de-interlacing has occurred at some other point. And all you want to do is enhance the footage. So let's try this clip right here. So with this clip, we're going to try Nyx. Nyx is great for denoising, but it's also great for low lighting, and it's wonderful for VHS and VHS-C tapes. So first what we're going to do is just run it as auto. Do note that I am having the recovered detail at 0. Normally it shows up at 20, but in this case I do not want to reintroduce any of the original footage, so think of this as a threshold of how much original footage you want to bring back, and I don't want to bring anything from the original. I just want the filter to work 100%. We're going to start as auto, so I'm going to make sure this is disabled. So it's running at auto, and we'll run this through. So right off the bat, this is already looking good compared to our original footage. So let's compare. And it's done a decent job at reducing these dark halos. Enhanced overall, we have a reduction of all these artifacts and issues like that. Alright, But let's go ahead and go into some manual settings and try to make this a little bit better. So enable parameters. Let's go to manual. Let's estimate. Okay, so this is what the application believes we should be doing. So what it's doing is it's searching frames ahead and behind and determining what settings are the best. So let's see. I'm gonna do reduce noise around here. Now the way the reduce grain works is you don't ever want this ahead of reduce noise or compression. It works with these two, but you always have to keep it just a little bit behind. Otherwise, the strength of this is quite strong and it ends up pulling details from surrounding pixels, and it can be very, very aggressive. So the goal is just to keep it just behind these. So you should look like a little bit of a triangle here. Fix compression. I'm going to go ahead and push this forward a little bit more. Reduce noise. Keep this guy back here. Sharpen. Definitely looks a little soft. I'm going to go extreme with this and push this forward. Dehalo. Quite happy with where it's at. Might just push it just a little bit more. And to me, it's soft enough where I'm just going to reduce the deep blur and anti-aliasing just a little. Okay. And let's see what we get. All right. So definitely made it sharper than what we had there. But we are introducing a little bit of these dark edges again. So it's just finding that sweet spot. So let's bring the Dehalo up a little bit. Sharpen, we'll bring it a tad down. And see what we, yeah, that's already much better. Okay, I think I'm happy with that result. Let's play this through. And that's looking pretty darn good. So compared to the original, this is already enhanced quite a bit. Now, one thing I like to do is, this is already powerful on its own, but I like to add multiple enhancements, up to 2. If your computer system is able to handle multiple at the same round, I would recommend trying File, Preferences, Advanced, and let's go to Features, and it will turn the second enhancement on and save. If your computer is not capable of running multiple enhancements, then another way to go about this is just to run one, bring that file back in, and then just run a different filter on top of it. So the results would be about the same. Okay, great. So another one I would like to add, which works really great with Nyx, is Iris. Now this is normally used to bring details for faces, things like that. But what I found with this is that it also finds details, just smaller details that a lot of the other AI models don't seem to identify. So I'm just going to use low quality and I'm just going to leave it at auto. All right. So let's compare against the previous one. All right. That looks pretty darn good. So we got a little bit of details here. We've got some details in the building, some shadows. So let's compare that. You can see it's a little more blocky. Now we have some more details brought into this piece of footage. And of course, you could always play with the parameters to push some sharpening in here. Now, one thing to note is if you go this route, and of course you go to manual, like I showed you before, use the estimate, is improved detail is quite aggressive on this model. So you'll probably want to go a little bit at a time because things could change quite drastically. So this is the main modifier that you want to keep an eye on. It's an excellent tool, but a little bit at a time. So I'm going to turn enable parameters off. I'm actually quite happy with this result. So let's play that one more time. So the way that with Nyx and Iris, the reason we want that route, think about it as painting. Nyx tends to address everything as a whole, so it's a more general overlook on how it treats things. So it's looking for details on larger shapes. Iris will bring in those details. So you don't want to go the other way around where you put Iris first and then Nyx, because what would happen is some of those details that Iris will pull out, Nyx is going to flatten because it's not looking for that. It's trying to treat it a little bit differently. It's looking for those large pieces. So go the other route. Think of it as Nyx is going to go ahead and address the large pieces, and Iris will go ahead and address the details and bring those out. So the combination of the two is quite remarkable. Let's say you don't have that much time to do experimentations and things like that, and we'll use the same piece of footage, but we'll go a little bit further down. So this trolley would be great, actually. Let's use something like this. Let's look at the original footage. Okay, there's a lot of information going on. So let's try something different. One enhancement that looks really good is actually using Artemis. Artemis is your go-to for denoising and doing some sharpening, but a lot of these are all presets built into the tool. And what I mean by that is if you look at input collection, you click on this, there are 6 different options. So these are all presets: high quality, medium quality, and so forth. The way I look at high quality, medium quality, low quality is essentially how aggressive do I want to push the denoising? Do I just want a hint of denoising and sharpening? Do I want to go a little bit more, or do I want to be very aggressive? That's the easiest way to look at this. Same thing with the medium halo, strong halos. There are a lot of dark edges everywhere. You probably want to go the stronger one. So I'm just going to go with the low quality. It's an older piece of footage. I want to see what that does. I'm going to go ahead and render. Let me actually make this my marking. Look at that. Not too bad. Okay, and you'll notice all the details that are preserved in the windows, some of the people walking around. But I can go a little bit further. You see these little aliased edging here? Well, why not use the same tool, but as a second enhancement? So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to Artemis. And look, I already have it set up and ready to go. So aliasing, let's put this back. Let's go ahead and render that out. Now obviously that's an error in my tape. So if we look at original, that exists there. This tool will not resolve that. What we can see is all this is looking so much nicer. Okay, so these are some really stellar options you could do. So we got a little dog here, and I'll start with the first frame just so we can see this. Now all I'm going to do is use Proteus. Proteus is another option. If you go to enhancement, again I'm in progressive because we don't have any interlaced fields. Proteus is an overall general tool which works wonderful, and in this case for something like VHS-C or VHS videos, it's a wonderful tool and allows you to modify many of the settings. So in this case, let's do something different. For all these pieces of footage, I've been currently leaving it at the original scale. They all would work fine if you were to double the size. In this case, just so we have that option, let's have that selected. I'm upscaling it. Recover detail. Again, I want this to 0. We will just run Proteus as is first, just to get a feel for this, what it's going to do. And that's not too bad at all. Did a great job removing all this compression from the poor video quality. Did a great job of just preserving the overall footage. But let's see if we go a little further and get a little more detail into this. So let's enable parameters. Okay, let's go manual. and we're going to estimate, see what the app wants to do. We know overall these settings were looking pretty darn good. But let's go to extreme here. Let's fix the compression. Let's put it almost 100. 96 sounds good. Let's sharpen this up pretty high. That sounds about right. I'm gonna leave improved detail the same. Sometimes with improved detail, it's kind of like the Iris tool, but not as extreme, where it is going to search and look for details and try to enhance it as much as possible. Sometimes this can be quite aggressive, and for something like VHS, I tend to start a little low first and then gradually move up because this can change things quite extensively. Okay, let's reduce noise. Let's bring that up a little bit. Dehalo. There isn't very much going on here, so I'm going to leave that alone. And anti-alias and deep blur, I was quite fine with the way it was looking, so let's go ahead and render that out. So let's see what we got. Not too shabby. That's looking pretty darn good. So picked up a lot of details that we had here. So some of these textures, even in the fur, did a really good job here in the head, even on the pillow. That's quite awesome. So Proteus can be an excellent tool when enhancing old VHS tapes and VHS-C. And just for fun, we're going to go ahead and take a look at an 8mm piece of footage. We'll just do the quick round of enhancements. We have these berries on this footage, and I want to go ahead and just enhance these. So let's start fresh on this thing. Obviously, there is no interlacing, so that tells me let's go progressive. I am going to use Artemis, and just to kind of show how powerful this tool is, I'm going to just use the low quality, and I'm going to run this a little bit more. Look at that. Compare that to the original, and that's pretty stellar. Of course, it's not going to take any burns or any huge scratches away, but it did a great job of removing the grain. The image looks clean, it's crisp. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see that difference. It's like night and day. Okay. And if you feel like this is a little too aggressive, just move on over to medium quality from the low quality. So this is kind of in between. And you'll see in some areas we still have a little bit of that grain hanging out, but it's still quite muted. And it still looks pretty darn good. So you got a little bit of details there from the grain. So areas like this and this, but it is definitely not an eyesore. It looks good. For something like this footage, where the grain is quite obvious, something like high quality doesn't change all too much. So you want to play with your footage and see if that's worth it. But this is much more subtle, and it's looking for like little agitations in the footage rather than reducing noise too much. So